Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Wetwork Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Tanner Boatwright. And I have to ask before I go on any further, is that a pseudonym or is that your real name? Because that's a really cool name.
Oh, yeah, that's my real name, bro. Yep.
All right. Well, fair enough. That's a pretty cool name. You might be able to put
My
that on
dad
a
was
t-shirt.
adopted, so I mean, I guess it's gifted to me in a way, but yeah.
All right. Well, fair enough. Fair enough. So today's guest, like I said, is Tanner Boatwright, and I have some notes here. So let me put these on, my little cheaters.
Man.
So not only is Tanner an entrepreneur, you're also a marketing contractor, a
Yeah.
best-selling author, and a paramedic.
Yes, sir.
So
Look at that list.
Tanner's book is called Still Standing, and it is an Amazon best-selling book.
Yeah, we hit 8 different categories. So one of them was Christian leadership. Another one was just medical prosthetics. Prosthetics and medicine was another one.
Nice.
Yeah, just a couple really cool, really unique categories. And people don't understand how hard it is and how unique it is to become a bestseller. There's right around 8 billion people in the world, and there's only about 500 to a million books published every year. And about out of all of that, 8% become bestsellers. So 8% out of a million books, right? So we're talking like 80,000 books. So the statistics per person that become bestsellers is something like 0.001% in a lifetime. It's wild.
That is wild, and congratulations, by the way. So
Thank you, man. I know
forever,
your wife's a bestseller too, isn't she?
she is. She
Yeah,
is. She's in a little bit different market, but
but
she
still,
is a
I mean,
best-selling.
I've got her book back there somewhere.
Very nice. I'm working on one myself now, so we'll
Oh,
see how that goes. It is quite difficult, but
yeah,
we'll
you
see
know
how
how
that
it is.
goes.
It's a process. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, Tanner, just tell them who you are, what your book's about, and we'll take it from there.
Cool. Yeah. So my name's Tanner Boatwright. I'm just a normal guy from a small town in West Virginia. I've got some really big dreams to do cool stuff in my life. I got shot whenever I was 15 in a hunting accident back in 2011, which ultimately resulted in the amputation of my right leg above the knee. But it put me on the path of self-discovery, which has led me to where I am today. And then I wrote a book on that journey. It's called Still Standing: How to Overcome Amputation, Get Your Life Back, and Become Stronger Than Ever. And yeah, we hit #1 on Amazon, 8 different categories. It is a self-help book for the limb loss community that uses something that I like to call the 5 keys. So there's a lot of guys out that have very similar things, like Sean Whalen. He has something that's called the core 4, and he writes about it and how to make shit happen, how he uses core 4. Well, I was in the Lions Den and started using core 4 and realized that, yeah, this works perfect for my life. How do I modify that so that I can, use it for amputees? And so I came up with the 5 keys, which is attitude, anatomy, alliances, appliances, and assets. And the premise of the entire gist is that all you have to do every single day is change your life at 1% or 1 degree. And so what you do is you just do one thing for each one of the five keys every day. So you do one thing for your mind, one thing for your body, one thing for your relationships, one thing for making a little bit of money, and one thing to learn, right? So that's what we use appliances as like our learning, right?
Yep.
Because we constantly have technology and prosthetics and different little things inside prosthetics that you have to get used to and learn about. So that's what we use appliances for. And if you do one thing in each one of those categories every single day, it's like a plane. whenever a plane shifts or moves or tilts 1 degree, you never notice it. But after long enough, after that, tilt happens for long enough, you end up, states away in a completely different time zone. And same thing with a boat. You could be on a boat sailing in the ocean, and you barely change course, just 1 degree. And after a short amount of time, you're in a completely different direction, right? So it's the same thing that happens in life. Is we have all kinds of stuff that happens to us, and how do we manage it? Well, we fall back on being able to chomp away at the elephant, because everything seems like it's an elephant, right? So I love to use that analogy. It's chomping away at the elephant one bite at a time. Just one day, you do one thing for each one of the 5 keys, and in a year, you'll be somewhere completely different than where you were a year before. And I think everybody's life goal, a better life in the end than they did at the beginning. So that's pretty much what the book's about, man. It starts out with my story, explains my story and how I got shot, and I'll go over that a little bit here. And then it moves into small stories throughout my life that happened after I got shot that helped me learn about each key and then how to use each key. And yeah, man, so we're just pushing that out to the win-loss community now to see how many people's lives we can change, and try to, amputees have been beggars. I mean, absolute beggars for majority of time, because whenever you would lose a limb, you didn't have a way to help. And if you lost a hand, it made everything so much more difficult. If you lost a leg, it made everything even more difficult. I mean, you got to think pirates and peg legs, that's honestly relatively new. It's still not that old. That's the last couple hundred years. And, humanity's been around for a lot longer than just a couple hundred years. So in the very beginnings, man, people, amputees, especially leg amputees, had to beg for whatever they could from everybody around them so that they could benefit. If they had a family, they could benefit it. Most of them got kicked out of their family or left by their family because they weren't benefits and they were just beggars. And I like that tradition still holds true today in the community. Most of the community is very victim mindseted and broken. And it's funny, like out of all of the communities that I put this book out to, the amputee community is the only one that gave me any shit for it. And it was because people were literally saying that I shouldn't be trying to tell them that they can overcome amputation. So I was starting to doubt myself for a second. I was like, wait, did I just write a fucking book about something that is not even, like, you can't even overcome this shit? Like, hold up, let me go check this out. So I went and Googled, just the definition of overcome. And it's just success, in the face of a challenge. I was like, all right, yeah, you can overcome amputation. I definitely have done that, no question. So that's just how the mind is in the amputee community, is they see it as like something that they just have to manage every single day. And I don't manage my leg, I don't manage my amputation. I mean, bro, I get up, I put my leg on, and I go about my day. I literally work out as soon as I wake up. I take a shower. I go to jiu-jitsu and with 2-legged people's asses all the time. Like, I literally there's nothing that I don't do whenever I go hunting. I mean, dude, I will hike 6 miles into the woods. I've got buddies that'll hike with me, and they beat up and wear out way before I do. I'll be like, let's take the long way around because there's a little more opportunity. And they'll be like, no, let's cut through the woods. I'm like, no, let's hit this log road, and it might take a little bit longer, but it's going to end up being something better. My buddy's like, nah, let's try to get past that if we can, man. Like,
I guarantee you could outwalk me in the woods, because just walking up the stairs right now, it's storming out and my left knee is flaring up. And I tell you what, yeah, it is something. Yeah.
No, man. So knee pain is one of the worst types of pains. So I still have knee pain in my left leg because by doing jiu-jitsu, it's constantly being tweaked and ripped on and put too much pressure. I've got micro tears and my MCL, my ACL, my LCL. I mean, it's just torn out. And then on top of it, my IT band's constantly, real tight. So I use a roller a lot, for that kind of stuff. But in college.
Just from the added stress of having to rely on that one natural joint. Did they
What?
give you any precautionary devices or
No,
anything?
hell no. So this is the thing, and that's what it comes back to again. Is like I'm rough on my left leg, but I promise I'm triple times as rough on my right leg because I know that if I fuck my right leg up, I can replace it.
Mhm.
I don't have to go through surgery. I don't have to, have issues with it, whatever. If it starts to mess up, I'll go buy a new one, and then my leg's good again. Like
Yeah.
so I don't have to worry about right leg pain. So I wear my right leg out like whenever I'm walking in the woods and stuff like that. I dominantly trust my right leg. It's funny, even in the snow, I will slip with my left foot before I slip with my right foot because the technology is so good in these prosthetics nowadays that the gait just understands and releases at the perfect time every time, so that like if you're on ice, my left leg will act a little bit funnier in the gait,
Mhm.
and I'll slip from my left foot. I never slip from my right foot. Never.
Interesting. And going back to what you were talking about earlier, the amputee community giving you shit and
Oh
doubting you, causing you
yeah,
to
yeah.
doubt yourself, and then going back to before that, biting the elephant one bite at a time, that
Yep.
can relate to just normal people. And especially in today's society, people have to bitch about everything.
You're right.
If they see someone successful, they want to go after them. And going back to taking the one bite of that elephant at a time, that can apply to everyone.
Sure.
Even if you have ADHD, if you don't have ADHD, being
Yep.
organized, notating,
Yep.
and everything like that, just take it one step at a time. You can accomplish a lot. That's why I have to commend you and what you've been able to do. So
Thank you, brother. Yeah, and a lot of my story is that because I honestly moved on from my amputation so early on that a lot of my story, even though I relate it to the limb loss community, if you read my book and you don't really use the word amputation as a limb and you use amputation as something out of your life or somebody or a lot of different things, or just completely remove the word amputation at all, just read it without the word amputation, and a lot of the lessons and cues and keys can be 100% applied to uh you know able they call them able-bodied people in the limb loss community. They
mhm.
refer to people with all their limbs as able body. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Everything's got a fucking little side name now. It can't just be people, human.
Yeah,
Like
everything has
you're
to
just
be in its own.
yeah,
Everyone has to be
limb
special.
loss
Everyone
community.
has to, yeah,
Oh, and
everyone
then
has
they
to be
say on top
special,
of
and
it,
everyone needs a trophy.
yeah, there's a difference in the limb loss community and then the limb difference community, right? Because there are people
Okay.
that are born without limbs and they
Mhm,
aren't limb loss. So you can't
mhm.
say they're limb loss. They're just limb different. It's like, damn it, we're all just amputees. We fucking lost. We don't have a limb, whatever. Call it. We're amputees. Like, well, I didn't have my leg amputated. How am I an amputee? Because you don't have a
Yeah,
fucking leg. What else do you want me to refer to you as? I don't know. But
yeah. We're just
how
a
these
really weird place in society, and the way everyone wants to be coddled. I try to put my finger on it, and what exactly is it, but I just it doesn't make sense. None of it. The
yeah,
politics, the everything in the world just doesn't make sense. I'm like,
blows my mind. I mean, I mean, I'm not scared to say it on here. I mean, I've got a bunch of guns in the back with a bunch of ammo and shit stuff in there. So right, so like all of the people that were giving me hate, I promise you, were all liberals or Democrats of some sort. Got to be. I was at least saying it, most likely liberals because they're like extreme blue hair with side of the head shaved, unicorn background, no pictures of themselves, so like not real profile pictures but unicorn backgrounds, pride flag backgrounds. Like not a single person on there was like a Republican. If I'd have saw another guy on there with a gun and he was like, oh, you're stupid or something, I'd have been like, hey buddy, I'd have felt bad about it. But all these other people, I was like, all right. I had one lady tell me that I need to completely change my message because one, you couldn't overcome amputation, and two, my message should be about stopping gun violence. I was like, honey, I was like, you don't know me. I was like,
Yeah.
I love my guns. Like, I'm still out shooting all the time. I try to go out once a week if I possibly can. Like,
And that's the thing. Everyone's becoming so divided, even Republicans and Democrats. If you look at, classical liberals, they're not like these woke people. These woke people are going so far left that they're coming back to the other center of the spectrum on the other side of the table. It's weird. And then you have people on the far right, which, I mean, there's crazy people on both sides, but I swear
oh
the
yeah,
people on the left taking over the hardline progressives, they don't even know what they're talking about. They just get riled up
it is
on whatever they see online.
it is hilarious. So like I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. Like I put myself more in the mind of, I try to at least put myself more in the mind of an independent, but
Mhm.
I'm definitely pushing the libertarian side. The
Yeah.
only thing I don't like about the libertarians are they are some of the like more extreme, and they say some dumb shit that's too extreme. And
Yeah.
like whenever they like push like extreme freedom, I'm like, all right, we gotta pull back just a little bit here, guy. Like, freedom to, what type of freedoms are we talking about here? Like, you want to talk, pure freedom that pushes the limits in a lot of areas for a lot of fucked up shit out there. So I like the
Yeah.
libertarian side, and like, we should be free, like limited government, but we also fucking still need big government somewhat. So that's
Yeah.
the
I guess I would say I'm a fiscally conservative, libertarian, independent, because I can point out bullshit from both parties very
Yep,
easily. And it
me
is
too.
very easy to point
Yeah,
out
it's
bullshit
easy.
in the Republican Party all
Easy.
day long. And especially with some of
We're all working together.
yeah, yeah. Then that's what I always say. The separation of powers has been turned into a conglomeration of wealth. I mean,
Yep.
if you're a Republican and you want to get elected, you're going to say the Democrats are bad, but you need the Democrats to do the stuff that they do so you can get the money from the donor. It's all big money. It
Exactly. They literally sway the way that the money flows.
yeah,
They try to place themselves downriver. Money runs downstream. They're constantly trying to place themselves downstream, wherever the money's going to come to. That
yeah,
way they can get reelected,
yeah,
pull their little strings behind the scenes, get the things done that they want.
yeah. Big pharma money, military industrial complex money. They're I would say 99.99%. If you were to ask me one politician that I like, I don't think I could name one off the top of my head. I'd probably have to do a few months worth of research to say, okay, this guy's good to go.
Yep.
They're both on it. And that's one thing. Going back to the Democratic side, it's weird that you have Robert Kennedy Jr. running and he looks like the libertarian out of all the candidates on both sides. I'm like, he's a classical liberal. I don't agree with all of his social policies, but he's making a lot of sense. And he sounds like the
Sounds good.
yeah, he sounds like the stable-minded libertarian
The
almost. I'm
issue
like,
is I don't know if I trust him. I like, why did he wait until he was 69 to come out? Right? Like he should have came out whenever he was 59. He's like he understood some shit back then. 10 years ago isn't that long ago. Like he should have came out back then, and started doing something a little bit heavier in the politics side. And then on top of it, he was also a very heavy Hillary Clinton supporter. And
mm.
that worries me. It's like,
Well, and look at who his uncle was as well.
what ties to the Clintons does he have long term, and you know are they playing this guy up as this, bigger, stronger, more intermediate type of guy that they're going to be able to slide in there and then
I don't
put
think they
pressure?
will because they're going after him
Are they?
hard. The
I haven't
DNC
seen
is
them.
going after him hard. They're calling him a conspiracy theorist. I didn't watch I guess he was just on Capitol Hill or something in front of a committee and they
I
were
don't think he's
going
a
after him.
conspiracy theorist. I think the dude knows his shit. I mean, I think
Yeah.
and if anything, he might have woke up to the evil. Like he might have woke up a little bit to the whole evil of, everything that's been going on behind the scenes. And it's like, fuck it, I'm coming out, man. Like I'm 69 years old. Like I've lived most of my life. 59, I could, still live a couple more years. Not get
Yeah. And let's be honest, he's a Kennedy. And if he's going against the mainstream Democratic Party, his
What happened to his uncle?
or his dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tough one there. Maybe, yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. At least it's something to hopefully open up
There's a
some people's
conspiracy
minds.
in there somewhere. It's just not what he believes.
Yeah. Hopefully it just people on the left and right can both see at least he's making some common sense statements. So
I agree. Man, this country needs something to take it in a completely different direction. And that's kind of what I'm doing with my story, and I want other guys to start doing with their stories too. Is I think that if we can, as men, if we can become leaders, real leaders, willing to say the things that we believe in, do the things for our family that we think should be done. I think that if we get 1%, because I don't think that 1% of the population of men are leaders. I think if we can get 1% of the population of men, turning them into real leaders, I think that they can lead the remaining 99%. But I just think that we need 1% of men to stand up, be real strong, and be able to take this country back and lead it right.
yeah.
And it's going to take people that have the intelligence to articulate their opinion correctly so that other people can understand it, and then that way people get on board. Because if people don't understand things and they reject it, it's one of the reasons why people reject Christianity, is because they just don't understand it. And I was one of those people one day too. Like I rejected Christianity after I got shot big time, because I looked at it like if God's got control over everything, okay, it's like being in a vehicle with one of your friends and they're driving and they wreck the vehicle into a tree and it causes you to lose your leg. Are you ever going to get back in the vehicle with that person again and let them drive? Probably not. Because and that's how I looked at God. I was like, hey man, I was like, if you had full control over my life and you caused me to lose my leg, then I want you to have no control over my life. I don't even want you in my life. Give me full control. And once you give me full control, I'll be fine. Like, but I need you out and gone and away from me. So like I had little knowledge of Christianity prior to my accident, but I was a Christian. After my accident, I turned into pretty much an atheist, maybe a little spiritual atheist a little bit. I don't really know how that works. Yeah, so I was a little spiritual, but still pretty atheist. But regardless, so and then like throughout my self-development years, I always still, like, if one of my friends brought up the fact that they were talking about God or whatever, I could destroy them, because I had almost died before. And whenever I almost died, I was on that brink of death. All I saw was darkness. And it was a very just a dark, like, waiting period. And it wasn't very long. It was a very short type of darkness. I wasn't dreaming. It wasn't like that. It was just a very short darkness before I woke back up. And
I imagine from the blood loss from the GSW.
it's because I passed myself out. So once we had got to the hospital and they had wheeled me into the bed, I got myself onto this bed. They cut my clothes off of me, packaged me up for the helicopter ride to Pittsburgh. Got the helicopter there, took me out to the helicopter, and the whole time I'd been begging them for pain meds. Like, I mean, it was fucking excruciatingly painful, right? But since I was losing blood, back then the main go-to was morphine, and morphine is not hemodynamically stable. It causes your blood pressure to drop. So they were worried that it would cause any pain medication would drop my blood pressure. So they didn't give me any pain medication. So we get in, they load me into the helicopter. And once they load me into the helicopter, the flight medic looks at me, looks away, looks back at me, looks away. And I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what he's doing. He grabs my arm and then he starts an IV. and he starts giving me blood. And I guess it was the first time that I had gotten blood too since I'd been shot. And then he puts a mask on my face, and whenever he puts the mask on my face, like, dude, I can visualize this shit like it's yesterday. It's crazy. Like this is 12 years ago or something like that, and I can visualize this shit like it's yesterday. And he puts this mask on my face, and I like look at him, and in my head I was thinking, oh, it's laughing gas, or it's something to put me to sleep. Like he's trying to put me to, it was just oxygen. It was just a non-rebreather mask with oxygen, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. So as soon as he puts it on there, I look at him, I just go, I was like, I'm gonna fucking breathe this shit in real quick. Put me to sleep, guy. I've been begging for this. Like, and I'm sure it freaked him out. Like, I'm a paramedic now, so I understand. Like, if I'd have saw my patient doing that, I probably would have freaked out a little bit, been like, oh, I'm gonna lose him. But yeah, I mean, I just passed myself out right after that. And then woke up. Whenever I woke up, I was in the middle of surgery, and kind of freaked out, right? And then they held me down, put me back to sleep. Whenever I woke back up after that, I was in ICU recovery. And whenever I first came to, I could hear that there were some people in the room, and I could tell that it was my mom. I could tell it was my aunts. I couldn't tell it, like everybody that was there. I could just tell there were some people in the room, more people than I wanted to be there whenever I woke up. So I just kept my eyes closed. And I don't know if I fell back asleep or not. I don't think I did, but I might have. It's hard to tell. But I could tell at one point that it was just my dad in the room, or at least I thought that it was just my dad. My mom says that she was in the room too, but I don't remember her in the room at this time. So I could like tell, like there's somebody still in the room, and I could tell it was my dad. So I open my eyes and like look over and see him, and he looks at me and I look at him, and I'm like, first thing that I want to see, man, is like, what's going on with my leg? Because I can still feel it. There's something called phantom limb sensation.
Yep.
With phantom limb sensation, like I can still feel my toes. I can still plantar dorsal flex my foot. I can still flex my calf. I can move my leg a little bit. Like it's pretty weird. Like I have a maybe 10 degree of movement within my leg.
Just because the way your brain is trained.
Yeah, because your brain still remembers that, and it still sends signals to that foot, right? Like it doesn't just stop sending the signals to the foot because the foot's no longer there. Like the brain still has nerves that were connected, and those nerves just cut off. So now it just still sends, signals that get to the end of that nerve. And that's kind of what causes the spark of pain, is whenever those messages kind of get to the end of that nerve and don't really have anywhere to go. But so I could still feel it. And my immediate thought was that they had cut a hole in the bed and then put my leg down through it, because like it just felt like it was through the beds, and my foot felt like it was through the bed. So I was like, oh, they cut a hole. So I looked down, like raise the sheet, look down, and see like it's gone. And just kind of like pause for a second, like slowly lower the blanket. I look at dad looks at me, and we both just start just crying, man. I mean, it was just a heartbreak, just full on heartbreak. Heartbreak for him to like, because I was an athlete prior to, so I was playing football, and I helped take my team to the playoffs for the first time in 20 years in high school. We had an amazing team, that year, and I had plans to go on to college and maybe play college ball, do something like that. And so he's crying, I was crying, and we hit it hard for like maybe 15 minutes, just a deep somber sob, and I took a big deep breath. Like I wasn't gonna cry forever, man. Fuck, I'm a man. So even at 15, I was still a man. So I take a big deep breath, look at him, and I go, I guess I'm gonna have to get used to this, aren't I? And he like chuckles a bit, takes a big deep breath, looks at me and goes, I guess you are. And that was the starting point of whenever we were like, no matter what challenges we're faced with, we're going to blow through these things. Like we're going to figure out how to get past it and become better. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
I'd like to say I would react the same way. It is tough. But going back to what you were saying about, your struggles with God, I do want to eventually make our way back to leadership, because we went over that and I'd like to go over that some more. But since we're on the topic now,
Hand me
going back
back,
to
my
your
friend, because I will go on and like I've got ADHD, so
No, that's all right. We'll get to it.
I'll continue to branch. So
We'll get to it. Don't worry. But now that we're on this topic, I'd like to say I would react the same way. You never know how you're going to react. But going back to what you were saying about how, you doubted God and things like that, I think we're all put in a situation, or we all go through things in life to, help people later on. Because if that never happened to you, you wouldn't say the things that you say. You probably would just be living a normal life, working, doing whatever you want to do to make money and spend it however you want to, possibly, so you can't, it's tough to place blame on anything, because, things do happen for a reason, and hopefully they're to better yourself and better
there we
others.
go. I'm glad you reeled me back, because you're right. I that was one of my rejections, is that things happen for a reason, right? I didn't want to think that things happen for a reason. So I didn't go on to learn more about Christianity or anything along those lines until one day I kind of sat back and was like, I don't know enough about Christianity to say that I don't believe it, or that it's not real, or that whatever. Like, it's like I don't know enough about this stuff to go and say that it's bullshit. Like I don't know. So I was like, all right. My brother had a baby. He started going back to church, and just to try to check it out a little bit. And with that, I had an old football coach that went to that same church that reached out to me and was like, hey man, stop by just sometime. And I'd consider myself like more of a philosopher. So I would go in and listen to the word and like try to pick it apart, like little things here, little things there. But it was weird, because I'd be going in and I didn't know the pastor, but he was a younger guy. I didn't know the pastor, but every time he was talking, it felt like there was something in the message where he was just talking directly to me. And so I went a couple times, and I told myself, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this for a year. I'm going to go to church, every Sunday for a year. And I'm going to start to really dive into the Bible and start reading it and start learning what it's about, and seeing what this book that everybody's talked about for a couple thousand years is really all about. And I went for a year, and now it's something that I absolutely love, and I love to bring it up in conversation, and I love to talk about the Bible, and I love to talk about God and Jesus Christ, and I love to have that conversation more and more with people. I think that a lot of the things that goes on, inside our government, and with the people that are voting for the people inside of our government, comes down to a lack of education on like certain things. I think that if more people understood Christianity, that there would be more Christians. I really do. And just like, if it's hard to take somebody that's from the Democrat Party and explain to them that what they're believing is wrong. That's a difficult thing to do. So you do have to be very careful in the way that you go about articulating your opinion or whatever, because it can't be an opinion. It needs to be based on fact, right? We need to be basing things on fact. And that's what like the liberals love to, to say that my opinion is what it is, whenever it's not. Like your opinion that there's 5,000 different fucking genders isn't the case. The fact is that there's two.
Yeah. And that's one thing, going back to a book I read, I can't remember what the name of it is now, but the far left, the woke progressives, the left, and kind of, the far left liberals, they're all opinion and emotion based, because most of their ideas don't have any basis in reality. They love to say trust the science, but they don't believe in the scientific process or
Right.
basic biology.
Right.
And I'm going to go back to leadership very quickly, because
Let's do it.
what you were talking about, I'm going to link the two. So everyone just stay with me here. It's
Yeah,
all
sorry,
gonna
guys.
come back around. So going back to the leadership thing and strong men, and how you said, 1% or less of men aren't leaders.
Yeah.
And I think, the saying, the last John Wayne type of guy, right? The progressives and the far left are going after the quote unquote toxic masculinity and trying to eliminate the strong men. Why? I think it boils down to, I know it sounds cheesy, but I did pick the Bible back up, and I've been going through it, and I started in Revelations just because, and we all know why. But I think it really shed some light on what's going on, good versus evil, and how do you take over a society? You basically walk right through it, because all the men have laid down their swords and they're not aware to, what's going on. So when they go after toxic masculinity, they're really just trying to pussify the society and take away their right to protect themselves, and their right to defense, and their right to fight, or their knowledge to fight. And one thing, I want to say, I was scrolling through YouTube and saw a clip of Jordan Peterson. We can go down that rabbit hole,
Love JP.
but he's basically saying how, and I agreed with it, men should grow up, boys especially. Boys are rambunctious. They don't need to be sitting in the traditional school from kindergarten, preschool, all the way third, fourth, fifth grade. They need to be out doing things and learn how to release their energy and their anger, and then eventually reel it in and know how to act in a civil society. That way you can protect it as needed. But weak men are the dangerous ones, because men do still have that biological aggression. They don't learn how to control it.
Right.
They have that biological testosterone, the anger, the rage, the strength. If you don't know how to reel that in and control yourself in a civil society, those are the dangerous men that shoot up the schools and the movie theater, not the protectors that learned at a young age to let it all out, manage it, control it, and then go into society.
Yeah, 100%. It's that victim mentality that people love to adopt, right? And what at its core is victim mentality? Well, it's the rejection of learning. It's the rejection of knowledge. Like, it's the rejection of acceptance and being able to, see something for what it is. And you basically just are rejecting everything. And so that's why one of the reasons I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because whenever you get in and with class and you have to roll with somebody. So whenever we say roll, it means basically you're wrestling. Okay. So whenever you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you have to roll with somebody, first you have to shake their hand. So one of the first things you do is you slap and then you bump. And so that slap bump initiates, like, you guys are getting ready to go hands on. And dude, there's people that you beat up on, and there's people that whip your ass. There are levels to the game. But regardless, whenever you're done, whether you get tapped out or you don't, and you're completely fucking tired or not, you shake hands again. Slap, bump. So this allows you to become comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and also control your anger. Because I'm telling you, whenever you're getting your ass beat, there's nothing more frustrating. You're disappointed in yourself. You're mad at the other person. Like, you want to create an excuse of every way that you possibly can, but you can't. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu holds you accountable for that. It's not about who's the strongest. It's not about who's the biggest. It's about who goes through and learns the best skills that ends up winning. And so it's a dedication thing. You have to stay dedicated to it. You have to practice it. You have to learn it. And then all of these things come into, being a man, being able to take care of your family, being dedicated to something, understanding how important, being able to be hard on someone is, and then also soft and pat them on the back after you're hard on them, so that you're also learning how to be an educator, so that then you can lead the people that are around you. So it just puts you at a different perspective of society. And we have tried like hell, and sports are really good at that. It's not just jiu-jitsu. Sports in general are really good at that. But we've tried like
Or at
hell.
least used to be.
Right. It used to be, whenever you had a coach that could grab you by the face mask and smack your ass for doing something stupid, it kind of woke you up to things. And it also, like, you learned how to be disciplined and be coachable and shit like that. So it used to be. And that's what I was getting to, is the public education system has tried to remove that, along with the ability to learn. So they're, removing all these things that teach you dedication, and then they're teaching you that, learning is a decision. You don't have to learn. You don't have to, and which then a lot of people decide not to learn, and they become very victim mindseted, and they reject it. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, the public education system has failed our country. I have a couple different theories as to why, but if you look at it, I was a criminal justice major in college, and you look at the system, although it has its flaws, it does a good job, but the education system really is a school to prison, school to employer
100%.
mentality. I mean, you're training these kids to be good employees or to be good prisoners and stand in line. There's no teaching them to think for themselves, or, some teachers do. I'm sure they're out there.
Few and far between, my friend. Even the good ones anymore are so restricted by the curriculum that they can't. I got a friend that, he's a great man. He's a holy man. And dude, I would put my life in his hands any given day of the week. His restriction by his job is sickening. Sickening. His father was a school teacher for a long time, was an amazing school teacher. And as things have started to progress the way that they have, in the direction that they have, he retired. Yeah. So like they lost an amazing school teacher because of the direction of things. And then his son, decided to become a school teacher just after him. Again, amazing teacher, amazing leader, like an amazing leader. Like every kid I've ever met looks up to this guy, because like he's just got that status about him, the way that he carries himself. It's phenomenal, even as a school teacher, right? Because like it's not like he's loaded with money. It's just the fact that he carries himself in a fashion that's honorable. And he's so restricted by like the ability for him to talk to kids, by his ability to teach kids, by going off the curriculum to teach them something that's going to be a real life skill, and a critical thinking task or whatever, make them think about things differently. He's restricted by all that. It is bad. And if he wasn't such a good-hearted person, like he will do what he can while he's in there. If he wasn't such a good-hearted person, they'd lose him too. Like, I'd love to find this guy a good Christian school to get him into, that made him more fucking money, and also allowed him to teach kids, in a better way, because dude's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and I worked in the public school system in our state, and after a certain point, the politicians can go back and forth and say whatever they want to say to get more money and get reelected, but you're passing it on to the teachers, and after a point, it's self-preservation. You can just put your head down and go along with it, or you can go do something else and make more money, quite honestly.
Oh yeah.
So it's a tough situation.
He loves the kids so much, man. I don't think he'll depart. And that, like, like I said, he's a very honorable type of man. So he'll do what he can to find certain kids that he can put his hands out on and touch. And That sounded kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But
I was about
like, every
to
time I
say,
think
I'm
about that now,
looking at
all I can picture is fucking Joe Biden, dude. It's fucked up. Like, I can't say like,
sniffing
and you should be
glue,
able to say something like that. You should be able to say something like that in the world and not,
touch their
it
hearts
doesn't go straight to like some
figuratively.
fucking perversion bullshit. But the society that we live in today, like you say something like that, and you're like, well, that was fucked up. Like, because it's a real fucking thing. It should never even be a thought, like a real fucking thought that's out there. It's part
Yeah.
of
And going
society.
back to the woke culture, it's really communism.
Oh yeah.
It's it's a way to corrupt a society and a country from the enemy's perspective. Because if you think about it, my buddy and I talk about this all the time. He's a historian. And if you look at the Cold War and you picture, okay, you might not be able to beat a giant, strong country face to face over a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12-year cycle. Because in America, we think in 4-year increments. Who's going to be the next president? What are we going to talk about then? Or 2 years,
Right.
mostly 4.
Mostly
But
for
if you're in a country where you have a president for life and you're communist, what can you do to take on a country like that? You infiltrate it slowly. You
Yep.
sneak people in, you sneak in the ideology. And that's really what all this extremist ideology is just trying to separate the two sides, divide and conquer. Because if you look at it, every country, the Nazis, the Russians, every communist or socialist country, they go in, or fascist, they go in and they disarm the population, and then they just spread this propaganda to divide people instead of uniting them, because you can divide and conquer very easily.
Right. Like you said, the easiest people to control, the divided, uneducated, weak. Like you add all those into a population, a total population, and you got something you can take over or manipulate. At least, at the very
Yeah.
least, you can make them believe something that, believe one thing's happening while completely other thing's happening. So like, almost like a
Yeah.
fucking magician.
And it really, both sides are to blame, because I can point to Republicans that, see something on, Facebook, they'll create the weirdest and most damnedest things you ever see, and they run with it like it's the word of God. I'm like,
I
how about you
know.
throw some logic in there real
Think
quick
about
and
that for
think
5
about that?
seconds, please.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, there's a million conspiracies out there that we could go over that are just absolutely hilarious. And people have got to stop doing that, because that's what turns people away from the Republican side, is the whole.
And I'm not even talking like the whole QAnon thing. It's like simple stuff. I saw a video the other day about, where was I can't remember his name, one of the martyrs of God in Revelation. Where was he killed? He was killed in Turkey. But someone's saying, oh, it was in Geneva. And what else is in Geneva? The UN, the this, the that. I'm like, that's not what the book says. So why don't we actually look at, but there's so much misinformation and disinformation in the media, on social media. It's hard. I'm a very
Is the moon
fact-based person.
a satellite? Is the moon just one big satellite?
Yeah, the flat earth. Even looking
Listen,
into
the flat
simple
earth
things.
people, some of them have a damn good argument. Like, there are times that I'll sit back and listen to their shit and go, you know what? Y'all sound like you've got something here. And then you start talking to like, there's like a real physicist, right? You start talking to a real physicist, and you bring up flat earth, and like it's painful for them to hear about, because there's people that two different type of things. And I can't remember the what the exact word for it is called, but there's two different types. A lot of them, like people that have a small understanding for things, will often think that they are more experienced and more of an expert in that field than what they really are. Whereas somebody who is truly an expert in that field will often feel the imposter syndrome, as if they don't know enough about that field to be an expert. So you have like these two different kinds of people. And like that's what it all comes down to, is there's a bunch of people that like with flat earth, have a figment of information. They don't know any of the calculations or anything like that. Like they don't have any of the scientific evidence behind it or
They don't
whatever.
have a money to buy a weather balloon to send a GoPro up.
Right. So they're making just all these assumptions based on what they can visually see,
Yeah.
and the crazy shit that's put out on the internet, and they're taking like these other people that are also just coming up with shit that sounds logical, that's not logical, that sounds logical, and then they're just running with it. And so
And it's a very hard. Yeah, I'm a very fact-based person, very objective, and in the past few years, it's very hard to find actual data on something that is true because there's so much misinformation from the media, from the government, from the big corporations, from people that are being paid by them. It's very hard to find good data anymore to research
one of
on
the things that
many
pushed me
topics.
back to the Bible. Like I literally got pushed back to the Bible because I feel like I can't believe anything else. I feel like the Bible is the only thing that has any true real fact to it. I feel like I can just take what I read in scripture, and since it's been around for as long as it has, go, well, that's probably more factual than the bullshit that I'm seeing on the news or whatever. So the Bible, I make my assumptions supposedly, I guess, off the Bible.
Yeah. And you know what they say, history repeats itself. So I don't know. I know we need someone to talk and speak the truth, but what else do you have going on? I know you're in the marketing world. You do a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
We
dude. So
met through
I
my
do.
wife actually, and she's an author, best-selling author,
Yeah,
just
she
like
is.
you. So what
Yeah,
else do you
dude.
do?
So I do marketing for general contractors. That's my main shtick. Is I build them websites, hook them up with some social media content, put out some email and SMS marketing, help them with their SEO production, create little systems and structures to help their business scale, right? And save them time overall.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Nobody money is one thing, time's a completely different. Whenever you can
Mhm.
give people time and money, that's whenever you're actually helping them.
Yeah.
Just having somebody spend money on something but not giving them time in return is it's not really quite a fair trade in my opinion anymore. I value my time more than I value anything else.
Yeah.
So I mainly just general contractors, but then I also work with Dream Starters and the $1 Million Book Agency and help them develop all of their CRM packages behind the scenes. So I'm their CRM developer per se,
Yeah. And
which is doing the exact same thing for anybody that's wrote a book
yeah.
or published a book with them. Then if they want their fulfillment done through the $1 Million Book Agency, they want marketing through the $1 Million Book Agency and all that, then I build the back end and turn it loose, man. And there's a lady that deals with everybody on the front end for me.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about the agency, but for those of you that don't know, CRM, it's just basically customer relationship management.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
then
just, which is basically just, keeping up with your clients, putting things out on Google, having Google reviews, having your social media, having a website, having emails and SMS campaigns, which campaigns are just where you receive, different marketing tactics through email
yep.
and through your texts and shit like that. So
It's basically a digital notebook that you keep notes in, and you can set it to give you prompts and reminders to do certain things. So, and then the $1 Million Book Agency, tell us about that some and what you got going on, because I know
yeah.
you all help my wife a lot and my father-in-law. So I think he's written 2 books.
Nice. Yeah, awesome, dude. Yeah, I think he has. You're right.
Yeah,
I do. Now I remember. That's how Sydney got into Dream Starters. I do
yeah.
believe.
And the last book he wrote was The Exit Plan, and then the one before that, I want to say, was Going for Gold. So I think those are the 2
Yeah,
books, and then
I think
hers
you're right.
was Your Day, Your Way. So yeah, tell us about that. What
So
do
that's
you
the
do?
$1 Million Book Agency is the marketing side. So Dream Starters is a side that helps you publish or ghostwrite your book,
Okay.
and they also do the bestseller push. to make sure that you actually become a bestseller and become
Mhm.
part of that 0.001% of the population, which is
Mhm.
super fun, super cool.
Yes.
And then once they're done, they turn their clients over to the $1 Million Book Agency, which is just, it's just it's part of Dream Starters. And we put together a marketing package, we put together a website, we put together social media content, we put together a course, so you have a course to sell immediately. Yeah, I mean, we just develop the whole back end for people, hook them up, hook them up with people that, if they want to run ads, hook them up with somebody that can manage their ads for them, or it just depends, man. Like, that's the thing about being a marketing contractor, is just finding out, what different markets need, and doing a little bit of market research to find out how to basically implant a client into that market so that they're noticed well enough to have business come their way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is tough. I've realized social media is not what it used to be, and it's very hard. There's so many things vying for your attention out there. It's impossible to, unless you know how to hit the algorithm, to gain any traction. It's very
Yep.
difficult nowadays.
Businesses on social media are almost dead. It's, I don't know how, I don't know how they're going to turn that around, but it's, people have been hit with ads so much on social media that they're getting tired of it. And
Yeah.
so normal business posts on social media, we're finding that you get very little, likes, very little traction, very little comments on. It's just not something
Mhm.
that people are interested in. Now, if your business is doing some funny, quirky videos, you can definitely drive traffic to it that way. But if you're just doing still image posts and stuff like that, it'll be it's never bad to do that kind of thing for your business, because it shows activity. It shows that you're still active, you're still in business, you're still doing things. Like, it shows that you're out there, and people will do, their research and search you on their social media before they work with you, especially if they're spending any kind of significant money. So you want to make sure that you have a presence out there to you know close your clients with. You want to
Yeah.
have some sort of landing, whether that be a website landing page or just your social media landing page.
Yeah. And like I said, there's so much stuff vying for your attention. And two things I'm okay with the government banning. One would be gas stoves, just because that's like an inside joke. I got blown up like last year before, by a propane pit. So like, I'm all for it. That's one thing I'll let the government
You're
do. Ban
hilarious,
the
bro.
gas
I love
stoves.
that. That's a
Ban
great
gas. Ban gas appliances. And
yeah.
then they're talking about banning TikTok, which it's just the Chinese government spying on you, which I'm okay banning it on that and that alone. But there's so much fucking stupid shit on that app. I hear it walking in public. My wife will be playing a TikTok.
Yep.
I'm like, turn that fucking shit off. It's so
I don't know.
stupid. You're taking away from the people that are trying to get a good message out there with all the fucking stupid videos they do.
Right. And think
So
about
that's
how
two things I'm
amazing,
okay with.
think about how amazing TikTok would be if it was flooded with leadership type stuff.
Like it is
Stuff
in China, educational stuff for kids.
right. Yeah, exactly. Where they're actually
Here,
trying
that
to
gets,
self-development,
yeah,
like
that gets
personal
pushed
excellence.
down the algorithm so much you don't find it.
Yeah, and it even gets pushed down the algorithm on Instagram or on Facebook, dude. Like, if you're posting anything positive, then it's nah. But if you're posting something that's like goofy, funny, whatever, then it gets traction. So it's
Yeah.
like you have to be goofy, funny, and not have a message in order for them to put it out there. So it's just like blind scrolling, right? They don't want to wake
Yeah.
people up. If you
Yeah.
put your message out there and people can read it and it wakes them up, then that's going against what they want. So
Yeah.
they would rather just people blind scroll through dumb fucking information to make them dumber. And I promise you, takes if any of your listeners, anybody that watches this, if you're caught up in scrolling on Instagram and scrolling on Facebook, but you find yourself having a hard time having long conversations, long drawn out conversations, sort of like the one that we're having right now. Like, if you think that this would be difficult for you to keep up with, to have this long of a drawn out conversation, get off of social media. Stop filling your brain with what everybody else thinks. and just pull away from that for 5 fucking minutes, literally. And whenever you do put your phone down, whatever, and you'll start to accumulate your own thoughts, and you'll realize that like you can control your own thoughts and build on those thoughts to become something, that, whatever your imagination wants to pull it in together as. You don't have to just think what everybody else thinks, monotonously scroll, let your mind go numb, do the same thing the next day, same thing the next day, same thing the next day. Stop being numb, feel things, like actually let your emotions set in, and to where you can think about things, comprehend things, build on top of your ideas. And because there's a lot of information out there right now. There's a lot of information out there. There's very little transformation. And so we have to find a way that we can start giving information to people with a tool so that they can transform.
Yeah, and it's so toxic and so unhealthy. Our kids nowadays can't carry on conversations like normal people, like kids growing up in the 40s and 50s, and there's so many echo chambers and so much social media tribalism. People get in the echo chambers and they just spew their propaganda, and it pushes them away from the truth and from the middle. And you're so distracted by the stuff on there that people, girls are committing suicide because they don't look like this, and it's all fake. And then people want to jump on there. I love, if I've realized I don't have the time, because, if someone will make a stupid smart ass comment, I'll pop right back and I enjoy it. I'll call someone a cuck, I'll call him a cuck or whatever. And then I do that once, and it wasn't even directed at him. It was one of our water episodes, basically saying it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. If you enjoy going out in nature and enjoying the water, you want to help make things better. And the guy's like, oh, well, this, that, and the other politics. I'm like, dude, both parties are cucks. They're in it for the money. And then he starts coming on with this like whole paragraph. I'm like,
you got time to write that, bro?
I'm like, shit, I can't do anything about this because I got better stuff I could be doing.
So. Literally what happened to me, man, with like the criticism I was taking from the amputee community, I was sitting back going, like, I read one and it was like, so long. Like they put some time into this one. And I sat back, read it, and was like, I don't have the energy to reply. I was like, I hope somebody else replies, because I'm not. And I like went on to read the next one, and like read the next one. I was like, it's a little shorter. I was like, I think I can reply to this one with like 1 or 2 sentences. And what I ended up doing was just screenshotting over like the definition of overcome from Google, and just sent that and was like, this is the definition, no, with a question mark. And I was like, that's all I'm fucking saying. Like, I don't have time for you guys. Like,
yeah, I mean, I try to, talk to people on social media and have that engagement. If it's something real quick, they say something great and I'll like it, I'll say thanks or whatever. But, if you want to have political debates on there, I have better things to do. You could come on the podcast if you have a really great point of view. Send me an email.
Yeah. Oh, the things that we've got to do in this country, and the way we've got to get things back on track, man.
Yeah. Well, and you can talk about this, how, the incident, however much you want to, but I did a EDC on last week's podcast, EDC, what I carry every day, things like that. And one thing I forgot to include was, well, my watches, because I am a watch fan. I see you got a watch on there. I can't, is that
it's a fossil. It's nothing crazy.
Okay. And I forgot watches, and then IFAKs and trauma kits and things like that. I've done a hopefully helpful tips and tricks video. I have IFAKs within arm's reach at all times, tourniquets, chest seals, Israeli bandages, gauze, all that good stuff. If you wouldn't mind talking about how you were able to treat it in the field, and what you learned from that medically, because you are a medic as well, let's talk about that some.
So in the field, I honestly, anything to tie a tourniquet at that point, and which happened to be, my dad was he's a law enforcement officer, and a federal law enforcement officer, and he ripped his shirt off and used that as my first tourniquet. And I mean, it was tight, but it wasn't tight enough. And so once we got down the mountain, so I'm gonna tell the story just a little bit.
Okay.
So It was November of 2011, and we had just finished up our football season. So I was, in really good health. Like that's the reason why I bring that up. So I was in really good health.
Mhm.
And it was November, like the 25th. Okay. So it was Thanksgiving. And it was Thanksgiving week. We hunt Thanksgiving week in West Virginia. We get off school for that week. We all go hunt. It's just kind of what we do. So I got to this cabin. We have a buddy that has a cabin with like 50 acres, something like that. And he invites us out there every year. So we go out to this cabin and we decide that we're going to go and bait some of our hunting stands with corn. And as we're going to bait these hunting stands, we get to one of the stands and we see deer. So it's me, my dad, my buddy, who's only about 12 years old. I'm 15. He's about 12. He's a little younger than me. And his dad. My dad and his dad are pretty good friends, kind of grew up together. Mm-hmm. And we get to the first stand and we see deer. And my buddy pulls up his gun and shoots. And he doesn't have a rest. It's a pretty difficult shot. He shoots and he misses. So we bait the stand, we move on. We go to our next spot. It's about midway up the mountain. So the first stand was come towards the bottom of the mountain. This one's midway up the mountain. We get to it, we see more deer. My buddy shoots again, misses again. He's got a single shot 223. He's using ballistic tip bullets just to make sure that there's damage to the deer that we can. It's a smaller bullet. That's why I say that for any of the people.
And you went out for a second. What was it? A 223?
223 ballistic tip. It's
okay.
Just a single shot. So you have to pull the hammer back to be able to shoot it. So then we go up the mountain and we're kind of expecting, now that we have seen deer at the first two spots, that we're going to see deer again at the third spot, which is at the top of the mountain. And my buddy has his gun loaded again and, preparing. So we drive these UTVs towards the top of the mountain and lo and behold, we see more deer. So we get out and my buddy's like, I'm not shooting. He's like,
okay, I was about to say, can someone else take a shot?
Yeah, he was just disappointed in himself to begin with. He was like, I don't even want to fucking try to shoot right now. I don't even know if my gun's on sight. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, why I've missed two already. Can somebody else take the shot? Whatever. So I get out and I'm looking at the deer and I can't tell if it's a buck or a doe. I'm pretty sure that it's a doe. And so I'm like, it's a doe. Like, I'm not sure I'm going to shoot. It's buck season. And you can still kill a doe during buck season, but I was like, it's buck season. That's kind of what I'm hunting here. Mm-hmm. And his dad was like, no, I think it's a buck. Let me walk behind you and get a better look. So whenever he goes to walk behind me, his son gave him the gun to carry. He got tired of carrying the gun, but he didn't tell his dad that the gun was loaded. So his dad walks behind me and just happens to stumble. And whenever he stumbles, he has his finger on the trigger. And we just happen to be about 5 yards apart. And the barrel happens to be pointed directly at the back of my leg. So whenever he pulls the trigger, boom, it hits me in the back of the leg. I heard a thud. It kind of sounded like rubber, like if you took rubber and hit it against a rock, like that, like, your boot against a rock walking through the woods type of sound. And then the loudest bang of my life. I mean, just as loud as you could possibly imagine. Hit the ground, rolled, stood back up, pointed at him and said, you fucking shot me. And I went to walk at him. And whenever I went to walk at him, all I felt was a big squeesh. And I say squeesh because the word squish is not enough. Squeesh has to be just a little bit more intense.
Did it hit the bone dead on?
Yeah, it was a direct impact through the femoral artery into my kneecap. The ballistic tip bullet exploded, which then ruptured the popliteal. So then I was bleeding from the femoral and the popliteal artery, and pretty much just completely fucking shattered my knee.
And that's a very good way to die. Like,
yeah, quick.
Even if you're in a hospital,
it's
a very good way to die.
Thankfully, I was in as good a shape as what I was. And my dad tied the first tourniquet as soon as what he did, because this was pretty much immediately that he tied the tourniquet. Even though that it wasn't tight enough, it was tight enough to slow the bleeding, right? Because, you're clicking time at that point regardless. Mm-hmm. So my dad
all the way up, for those that don't know. You want to basically, if it was your right leg.
Yeah.
If you basically want it up around, you want to
put it as high up in your groin as you possibly can, for sure. Mine was not. at the time, but mine was a little bit lower. It was probably about, I'd say mid thigh is about where I had mine. So, which is a terrible spot to have it because you need, twice the amount of force to be able to occlude the artery, right? That's why we say high and tight, is because there's an amount of force that you need to occlude an artery. And whenever you're in the mid thigh and that big muscle section, think about all that muscle that you have to impact to be able to occlude the artery. So that's why you want it high and tight. Mine was not. Mine was about mid thigh. We were in a rush, and my dad's law enforcement, but he doesn't put on fucking tourniquets for a living. He's not a medic in the prison system. He's just a guard, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, so it was about mid thigh, and he helps me hop to the UTV. The guy that shot me jumps into the driver's seat and starts to take me down the mountain. And my dad and his son have to go and get to the other UTV to start coming down the mountain behind us. And the guy's kind of slowly driving down the mountain. I looked over at him. I was like, hey, man, he was apologizing. I was like, hey, man, I was like, I know you're sorry. I was like, get me off this fucking mountain. And I'm 15. I didn't know anything, nothing about first aid, human anatomy, none of that.
Or the psyche of it as well, because it's a traumatic experience for
Absolutely.
him. I mean, luckily your dad was in law enforcement, so he may be able to deal with that a little bit better.
Yeah, he was controlling it pretty good. I was controlling it really good. Like crazy enough, man. I've always been in the face of a really crazy situation, I calm down. And that's one of the reasons why I'm a good medic, is because whenever shit's going crazy, I'm able to kind of focus and hone in on what I'm doing. But we get down to the bottom of the mountain, and I'm just holding my tourniquet tight. The guy that shot me gets out of the UTV, runs into the cabin to get a couple blankets and towels. He's not sure which one we need from another tourniquet or whatever we need at that point, right? And he just put Lamborghini doors on the UTV. So then my dad shows up behind us finally, and whenever he does, he gets out and he's yelling for me. He's like trying to figure out where I'm at. And I yelled, Dad, I'm over here, because I couldn't figure out how to open up the Lamborghini doors. And like that kind of twisted my dad up a little bit, right? Is because like I'm yelling for him by this time it's pretty dark out. Like it was towards the evening whenever we were driving around anyway, and now it's to the point where the sun's set. So it's pretty dark out. So he still has like dreams, like a random occurring dream where it'll be me like yelling in the darkness, like, Dad, I'm over here, like crazy shit. So he comes over to me, opens the door, helps me hop to our Dodge Durango. We had a 2002 Dodge Durango at the time. He helps me hop into the Durango. The guy that shot me comes running out of the cabin. He has a couple towels, a couple blankets, throws them on top of me. I throw them all off of me except for a single towel. I took that single towel and I retied my tourniquet. So I had 2 tourniquets on now. So my dad, the guy throws, because there's a gate at the bottom of the road to the cabin. There's a little bit of a road to get to the cabin, and there's a gate, a privacy gate, security gate. And so the guy throws my dad like 50 keys. He's not sure, which one. He just tosses them on. My dad's like, go, whatever. So Dad peels the tires out, drives down the mountain. We get to the gate. Dad gets out, and like I said, it's dark at the time. We're in a 2002 Dodge Durango. The headlights aren't very good. Dad doesn't know what key that he's trying to unlock this gate with, so he has to scroll through each one. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I have my tourniquet tied, and I can hear him cussing. I can hear him saying, fuck, shit, he's just pissed off. Like he's considering ramming the gate. And I know that he can't ram this gate because it would total the vehicle, which would then stop us from being able to get to the hospital. So I knew that was out of the question. I knew he knew that too, but like I knew he was considering it. And so while he's cussing, I start to black out. So I have the world around me starts to literally zone in, like 007 style, literally exactly like I'd played 007 games whenever I was a kid, and it reminded me of exactly 007. So I was like, oh shit, like I'm in my head I was like, that means you're dying, guy, like it's not good. So I took my tourniquet, and it was a knot. So I twisted that knot. I mean, I'm talking like 3 more times, 4 more times, to the point where it hurt worse where my tourniquet was than where I got shot.
Yep.
And then I shook my head violently. So I just held my breath and shook my head as violently as I possibly could to get blood back to my brain. And which probably gave me a little blood back to my brain, but more or less, I would say just spiked my adrenaline, which then just increased my blood pressure. And then that's what flooded my brain with just a little bit more blood. So right around that same time, Dad got the gate unlocked and he hops back in the Durango and he takes off. And we're just screaming, coming out this one lane road that has probably a 70 foot cliff, maybe a little bit higher in spots, off to my right. And so I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I like keep like peering over this hill. I'm like, fuck, if we go over that, I'm definitely dead. Like, there's no question about that one. My dad pulls out his cell phone. He's trying to call 911. And whenever, like, you know, he's on a cell phone, he's driving, 60-foot cliff. I'm like, bad idea. So I reach over and grab the cell phone from him. And I was like, hey, I'll call 911 whenever we get service. We didn't have fucking service where we were at. He was just trying
You keep two hands on the wheel.
yeah, he was just trying to stay up on he had things he knew that needed done.
Yeah.
So he was like fucking trying to get everything done fast. Wasn't even considering the fact that there wasn't service there. So and he had a prior law enforcement driving, so like he knew it, like, crazy good driver, right? Always had been the whole life. It was like one of the fun things about my dad. And so we're just screaming out this road, and he asked me at one point, he's like, because I'm calm, like I'm not crying, I'm not freaking out, I'm not screaming, like what I'm really doing is I'm trying to control the raging thought inside my head of like, what the fuck is going to happen to me right now? Like, I don't know if I'm going to die. I don't know if I'm going to lose my leg. I don't know what's going on right now. I'm just sitting here trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And he looks at me at one point and he's like, did it just graze you, or was it a direct impact? Because I'm so calm. And I was like I look down and I look at my foot, and my foot's just completely, laying flat inside the Dodge Durango. I look down, see my foot, and I go, nope, no, it was direct impact. And he's like, fuck. So, just back on the gas, just hammering it. Finally get to where we have service, and I dial 911 and throw him the phone. And he picks up the phone, and he he's talking to the 911 operator, and she's like, pull over, my ambulance our ambulance will meet you on the highway. And Dad's like, fuck your ambulance. I'm going 110 miles an hour. I'll beat your ambulance to the hospital. And he did. So like that's a lot of people would have stopped. And that's what a 911 operator is supposed to tell you to do. But as a medic, I'm telling you now, the best thing you can do is just continue driving yourself.
And it's also a double-edged sword, because it depends on the situation. But if an ambulance brings you in, you're going straight.
Or hit somebody else, kill somebody else, whatever. So the idea is, pull over, our ambulance will meet you no matter how extreme the event is, even if your kid's fucking choking. I would tell you to say, fuck that, do whatever you need to do to, save your kid, which is what my dad did. And so we pull up to the hospital. Well, let me go back a little bit. So he looks at me after he calls 911, looks at me and goes, you okay? Like, is there anything you're scared of? And I go, he goes, how you doing? Anything you scared of? And I'm like sitting there and I go, yeah. He goes, what? And I was like, I'm a little scared of dying and losing my leg. And like in the most fatherly way possible, he just kind of like chuckles, like, I'm not going to let either one of those fucking things happen. And like just backhammering it, just focused. Like my dad's just he was always just hardcore dude, man. Like, very straight minded, very clear minded, and right back on it. So we get to the hospital and they wheel out a wheelchair. And whenever they wheel out a wheelchair, like we open the door, they wheel a wheelchair, and they go, there's 3 nurses. They go, get yourself into it. And I'm like, fuck, all right. So like slide myself to the side, and my legs, your legs drop down towards the ground. Well, my leg like drops, probably 3 inches deeper. I might be exaggerating, maybe 2 inches, 3 inches deeper than what my left leg did. And like I looked down, saw that, and was like, oh man. Stood up on my left foot. They put the chair behind me. I sat down. and then I had to reach down and grab, like I lifted my left leg, put it on the wheelchair, went to move my right leg, and whenever I did, my femur moved up and my leg stayed on the ground. Like it literally didn't move. So I just moved it. Once I saw that, I go, fuck. So I like just took a big deep breath, reached down, grabbed my leg, and it felt like I was grabbing somebody else's fucking leg, man. I mean, completely somebody else's leg. Put it onto the wheelchair, and then they wheeled me in. And that's I told like the rest of the story a little bit earlier, but yeah, they wheeled me in, and then I had to kind of do the same thing to get myself onto a trauma bed inside the emergency department, where a bunch of nurses flooded me, started cutting all my clothes off, and then the tension, there was a lot of tension in the room, right? This is a big deal. You have a 15-year-old that just got shot, so they're freaking out a little bit. It's a small town. Most of them knew me, especially by playing football and being a standout athlete. I was in the newspaper all the time, so most of them knew me. So it was kind of a big deal, and they cut all my clothes off of me. I'm 15 years old. I had to break the tension. The tension was too much, and so like I needed to stay in a positive mindset myself. So I go, sorry girls, I haven't shaved in a few months. Like, and they just died laughing. Here's this little 15-year-old boy that's fucking dying from getting shot, cracking jokes in the middle of the ED about being fucking naked and hairy. So ease the tension a little bit. My brother kind of a fight with security. He wasn't gonna let him back. He's a big burly dude too. My brother gets in the fight with security, comes back. We talk for a second. He peels out, and they start to package me for the helicopter ride. So I didn't really have to do a whole lot whenever it came down to it, man. All it came down to was staying cognitive, like not letting myself freak out, making sure that my tourniquet was tied tight enough. And like you said, it would have been much better, high and tight, high up in the groin as possibly as it can be, and tight as you can possibly fucking put it. I mean, to the point where like you think that the rest of your leg's gonna fall off, type of thing. And because that right there is all you need, man. And breathe, maintain your breathing, because you have to keep oxygen. So people do a lot of the times think that it's more complicated taking care of a gunshot wound than it really is. But whenever it comes down to anything that's in a limb, it's just stopping the bleeding, right? And that it comes down to a tourniquet. If you're in an artery, then it comes down to a tourniquet. If it's not in an artery, then a lot of times just like an ace bandage that is super tight will do the job too. Anything that's in the abdomen, you're gonna wanna pack. So like, especially if you're in the thoracic cavity, you're gonna want to cover it with some sort of occlusive dressing first. Whether like we used to always just use our hand, and because we had gloves on, and so that glove would allow us to have an occlusive dressing, and that stops the air from getting into the thoracic cavity and then causing the lungs to collapse, because that air will get trapped, and then whenever you take a deep breath, you can't breathe it out, or can't breathe in as much, because there's pressure in there stopping you. So you want to have something that will allow that. Well, one, you don't want air in there, but if the air that will get in there, because it's an injury, there's going to be little ways that air gets in there. You want that air to be able to release, so you cover 3 sides of that all-inclusive dressing, leaving one side open, which allows the air to escape. But whenever you breathe in and that negative pressure happens from your diaphragm, it won't allow air to, it'll seal and won't let the air to go into your thoracic cavity. But then if air, what little air does, if you have a puncture in your lung, then whenever you take a big deep breath in, that air will escape from your lung into your thoracic cavity. You want that air to be able to release, which then is why you have that one side open. If you're into the guts, that's a hard one. The guts suck, but they do bleed a lot less, a lot slower. Pack it. And whenever I say pack it, I mean put cloth. And like in the field, most people aren't walking around with trauma kits or something like that. Fucking take your buddy's shirt. I know it's nasty and gross where they've been sweating all day. Don't fucking matter, man. Like, you're gonna take some antibiotics afterwards anyway. You're gonna be fucking shot. Like, there's not good things in your body regardless. Your body's gonna be fighting infection no matter what. So just go ahead and take your buddy's shirt and fucking stuff it into your guts. Or if you're not able to, make them do it. And stuff that shit, as deep in there as possible until you can't push it in there any deeper. And that'll start to soak up all the nasty, gut juices and, GI fluids and stuff like that. Because a lot of times getting shot in the guts becomes lethal after, not during, because of the infection that comes with it. So my grandfather, he got shot by a 12 gauge in Vietnam. And he ended up running 6 miles after he got shot, holding his guts together. But he only has a couple inches left of each one of his small and large intestine. It's real small, and it's rough on him whenever it comes to digestion. So the guts are an area that it's gross, it's nasty, but it often won't kill you very fast. And then of course anything in the thoracic cavity is going to be something that you want to take very seriously and get covered as quickly as you can. Not necessarily pack it. You don't want to go packing the thoracic cavity because you're not trying to create internal pressure. But you're definitely, anything that's in the guts, you're gonna want to put some sort of packing in, and just to start to soak up all the blood and all the GI fluid and stuff like that. And then you're going to want to cover the outside of it again with some sort of occlusive dressing that also has, I would personally have one side of it that was open to release any internal pressure as well. But yeah, and then of course the main thing is just get to some sort of IV fluid as fast as possible. And I hate saline, but saline fills the pipes. So it's better to have something that fills the pipes than nothing. You don't want your pipes to be at zero, because then everything just shuts the fuck off. You got to have, red blood cells to be able to make it to the brain, for the brain to work. So you got to have some sort of blood. If you just putting saline in your blood and there's not red blood cells that can make it to your brain, you're going to die regardless. So saline's good, but the main thing that you want is whole blood, and you want that as fast as you possibly can. But whenever it comes down to an arm and a leg, things like that, as long as you have the tourniquet tied tight enough to where the bleeding truly is stopped, guys have lasted a long fucking time with those types of injuries. So
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the gunshot wound, the GSW doesn't get it, oftentimes or sometimes the tourniquet application itself
100%.
will be the end of it.
Absolutely. And
of that appendage, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the length of time in which it's been applied for. If you've had a tourniquet on there for a couple of hours, there's a good chance that tourniquet's going to be what caused enough cell death for the amputation to happen. And which there's medics in the field that make that mistake every year. They'll have a gunshot that they'll think is you have blood pooling, and so you get shot in an area and it creates a lot of space inside of a muscle, and then the blood pools into that muscle. And then whenever your patient walks or does something, that'll squirt, and it'll resemble a lot like an arterial bleed. So whenever you get shot in an artery, whenever your patient walks or does anything along those lines, then that artery squirts. And it's a very noticeable thing that whenever you see it, you instantly go to, oh, it's arterial. Well, you can have blood pooling that will resemble arterial. And so whenever that happens, then it's not necessarily as much that you need the tourniquet. It's just that you need pressure so that all that stops. Whenever you apply the tourniquet, then it does include the artery, right? Because before, that artery was still working and supplying blood to the rest of the muscle. Now it's not. So since it's not, if it's there for an extended period of time, it will have enough cell death. A lot of the times, it's like 3 hours or so that you'll start to have nerve damage. So it's not like super fast, like something that, within an hour along those lines, that's not going to happen. But within like 4 or 5 hours, yeah, they're probably going to you're probably going to have some sort of neurodegenerative effects that have happened within your limb. And a lot of people at that moment then never recover from those degenerative effects, and then have to get, fall back into amputation. A lot of those guys, like from overseas, right? Because the overseas guys have an extended period of time in which it takes for them to receive care. So sometimes, they get shot in the leg, and it might have not necessarily been traumatic enough for the amputation to occur, but they had their tourniquet on for so long that so much nerve death has happened that then they can't wiggle their toes and they can't plantar dorsiflex their foot. They've lost all their function of their leg. And then in the end, they result or they just kind of opt out for the amputation of their limb because they can't fucking move it anyway. And then they can put a prosthetic on that they can have more function for than they would have had, with their leg. So yeah, man, it's
tough.
It is. It's a fucking tough gig. But whenever it comes down to it, it's do you play it safe or do you not? And as a paramedic in the field, I don't have a way to determine if it's arterial or if it's venous. And despite what people think, blood is blood, blood is red, and there's not a ton of difference in venous and arterial blood. And especially like if you have somebody that's, a fit individual, because their blood will still have a good amount of oxygen in it whenever it returns back to the heart, right? So it didn't deplete all the oxygen. So the blood still has a little oxygen in it. So it will resemble arterial blood. And so it's hard for a medic to determine in the field. It's especially hard for somebody to determine in the field that has never seen it or experienced it or anything like that, has no experience to it. So I would say if you're in the field and you get shot, despite what you think, like unless it's like barely bleeding, like if you got hit by a BB from a shotgun blast, like you're probably fine. But if you got hit with a high powered rifle and an appendage, you should probably tourniquet that shit.
Yeah, and handguns are even harder. I mean, I always say be prepared for anything that could happen. Most oftentimes I have a rat's tourniquet that I'll wrap around my belt.
Yep.
A cat tourniquet in your truck, chest seals, Israeli bandages,
Right.
ace bandages, gauze, things like that, and go take a stop the bleed course. That way, at least
Absolutely.
because if it's your wife or your son or something,
yeah,
and be ready, because it's hard even with handgun entrances. If there's blood around it, it's hard to find it. If it's a smaller caliber, you're going to be looking, and you might not even be able to find the entry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a guy that got shot by a 22, and it was, a very, very similar thing. So, yeah, man, I would say for sure, for the most part, use a tourniquet. If you're using a handgun and you pull it and you hit yourself in the groins are really terrible. Pelvic region, that groin region is really terrible for trying to stop any sort of bleeding. That's why we have something that's called a pelvic binder, and I like to put it on with a couple layers of towels for additional pressure into that pelvic region to slow the blood flow from basically mid hip all the way down. And because it's really hard to stop blood flow to one side of your groin versus the other side of the groin. So I would say the groin is the other spot where I would pack. If you have the ability to pack it, like if you're appendix carrying, which I appendix carry, and I tell most people to appendix carry, but I also would tell people if you're right-handed and push it to your left groin whenever. Check this out. So appendix carry, by pushing your gun to your left groin, have the barrel stare down the left groin channel. And so that's the safest spot to put it, especially for things like Glocks, shit that don't have safeties, whatever. It's the safest place to put it. It's because it's in the groin channel, so that if it does go off or something like that, whenever you pull it, you're less likely to shoot yourself in the leg. You're more likely to shoot, through the groin channel, and have way less damage, more along the lines of a graze than a direct impact. And I would have much rather been grazed than directly impacted. So and then with that, whenever you push your appendix carry to your left groin channel, that opens up your right groin channel. If you carry a knife daily, stop carrying your knife in your fucking pocket on one hip or on one pocket or the other pocket. Because if I'm on the ground and I'm on my left side taking a beating, and I'm trying to reach for my knife that's in my right pocket, there's no chance that I'm getting to it. But if it's in my appendix, guess where I'm able to get to? Perfect. And where am I comfortable pulling my knife from? Where am I comfortable pulling my gun from? Where do I train from? All from the appendix. So why do I put something in my pocket when I'm not trained to pull something from my pocket unless it's my fucking cell phone? So like, start carrying your knife in your appendix too. But then you have to pay attention to your knife in the direction of the blade and shit like that. You want to make sure that your blade's pointed downwards and your hook is on the upper side, so that whenever you're stuffing your knife in, you don't have to worry about the blade opening up and fucking stabbing into your stomach. So you need to
my Microtech.
Yeah, well, no, the Microtech's perfect. It's perfect for the appendix carry. That's one of the knives that I carry on my appendix is the Microtech, because the trigger's so stiff. I don't ever worry about the fact of, and on top of it, they have that brake assist. So even if you do hit it, like you might
if it touches something, it's
might get a little poke in the wiener, but it'll fucking
it'll stop.
Yeah, it's not going to stab right through your shit. So Microtech's phenomenal. But yeah, check that out and you'll like, just being able to pull your knife is really nice, because you can start to slowly pull. Like if you have somebody in front of you, right, and you're trying to tell them step back, stay back, whatever, you can start to slowly lift your shirt, and by pushing the knife from underneath bottom side of the knife it out. And then that also allows you to not brandish. So like one of the bad things is like you get into an altercation and you're getting ready to take things to the next level, and you show your gun, now you've brandished. Well, if you don't pull that firearm to use it, now you're the one that's in the wrong here. So you want to make sure you're not brandishing anytime. So with that knife there, you can start to pull your knife, and just by slowly pushing it upwards, and then keeping it underneath your t-shirt, it's still underneath your t-shirt, still easy to grab. And then like things escalate a little bit more. All right, well, now I have pulled it, so now it's unclipped completely from my pants, and I'm starting to rotate it towards my back, because I still don't want them to see it, and I still don't want to brandish it. And then so once I have it towards my back, towards my right hip, behind my right hip, if I need to, then I can deploy it, and they won't even know that it's deployed, right? So like you've kept it hidden the entire time. You've never brandished, and you've always kept the competitive advantage, right? And then that also allows you to, if you need to, once you've used your knife, if your knife gets taken from you or something happens, you get hit and it knocks it out of your hand, whatever, you've used it once and it hits a bone, and sometimes that gets stuck, whatever. Now you still have your gun to go back to. So you can still, reach back for the gun. So then you've went through the necessary steps of lethal force. So you went from, being, hand to hand, I don't want to do this, to, I went to a knife, I went to something that's less lethal in the eyes of the public, which isn't really, but less lethal than a firearm. I went to that.
I'd rather get shot than stabbed.
Fuck yeah, me too. Everybody loses in a knife fight, man. Everybody gets stabbed. And then, so I would go to your knife, and then go to the gun after that. And whenever you go with your knife, make sure that your blade is facing front and downwards, and then don't focus on actually trying to stab your person, and just remember to keep your hands up. And whenever you keep your hands up and you punch across their face. Don't try to punch them in the face. You don't need to punch them in the face. You're trying to get that blade to touch them, so that every time you punch, you're punching across their face, and it's just slicing their face up, right? And then at the very end of it, whenever you punch through their face, you're going to come back and you're going to stab them in the side of the fucking neck. So, because it's going to slip right by their face. You've been doing that the whole time. Well, now you're just going to angle your knife back a little bit whenever you slip by their face, and you're going to stab it right in the side of their neck.
Did you see that one video? It was, I don't know, maybe a year ago. I want to say it was England. There was like 4, 5, 6 guys coming after like 3 guys, and the one guy's backpedaling, and I don't know what he had, but I think it was in England or somewhere. And this big old burly dude just comes up, and the dude just gets him one time in the jugular, and you just see him drop within 15 seconds, 40 seconds, he's done.
Absolutely.
It's gnarly.
My dad was taught that technique by a mafia member in the prison system. So my dad was talking to this guy and was like, you use knives whenever you kill people. Like, what technique would you use if you're in a knife fight? And the guy was like, keep the blade this way, punch by them. He's like, and you can punch through their throat if you want to. He's like, but mainly he's like, I would punch through their face just to mar their face. He said, and then whenever I wanted to finish it, he said, I'd punch through and then I'd stab him right in the side of the neck and leave my knife. I was like, damn, son.
Not a way I want to go.
No, not at all. But I mean, whenever you're talking everyday carry and you're talking about protecting yourself, protecting your wife, protecting your family, protecting whatever, I'll take anything to the most extreme, vile places possible. Like whenever it comes to protecting my life or protecting my girlfriend or my family, I don't give a fuck at that point. And I'll stab you in the dick. I don't give a shit.
I did say that in my wedding vows, and I got a couple chuckles, but a couple.
I'll love you even if I have to stab someone in the dick.
Well, I didn't say that, but yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Tanner. I thank you
for man. This
coming on.
Phenomenal. So that's why I wanted to hop on with you, man. I knew we'd connect, and I knew that we just take off in different directions, and I think we should totally do this shit again, man. Because
hell yeah. Yeah. Real quick, what's your piece you carry every day?
Just a Glock 43, but I bought it before the 43X came out.
Yep.
I like it. And I have the +2 on with the mag, and that gives me enough of a grip at the bottom. It pretty much turns it into the X.
Yeah.
And then I've done some trigger work to it and some night sights, and I use a Kydex holster.
Yep.
And yeah, that's my go-to. But I also have a little Keltec P32 that if I'm wearing pants and I'm like I have to tuck my shirt in, that's my ankle gun. I love it. Yeah. And then I have a little North American Arms 22 mag that has an oversized grip on it that anytime I go fishing, I take with me fishing in case I run into a snake or something like that.
Yeah.
And then whenever I go walking in the big woods of West Virginia, we're getting pounded with black bear. I mean, something crazy. We have a wild black bear population. If any of your listeners want to hunt black bears, tell them to reach out to me and I'll put them on my property. I have 3,500 acres. I'll put them on my property and they can kill as many fucking black bears they want. You can only kill one legally. So I'm not going to let you kill more than that in my presence, but in my head, I'm like, you can kill as many as you want because I'm done with them. But whenever I'm out
take you up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I'm out there, I carry a 357, a Taurus. I want to say it's a 6.02, and it's a 357 with a Kydex holster that's on my chest, and that way it's just easy to deploy. But
yeah, I did my last video with EDC. When I'm fat and feeling lazy, I go for the 43. If I'm in like a high, traffic area, I'll carry a Glock 19.
Yep.
Yeah. And the good thing with the Glocks is, I'll bet if Sig Sauer ever listens to this podcast, they'll probably sue me because all I do is bash them and bash red sites. But
I love to drop one, you'll shoot yourself. Motherfuckers. Yeah. How you do that, I'll never know. And then get a gig with the fucking military. How did how did Glock not close the military on the 19X? Have you shot a 19X yet?
I have the 45. I haven't shot the 19X. That's the only gun that I don't have.
The 19X are very similar, but yeah, I absolutely love the 19X, and I do not understand how the military went with SIG over. I mean, I do. There's a little bit of a comfort difference and some like fancier quality,
modularity, all that bullshit.
Yeah, but whenever it comes down to it, Glock perfection, my friend, Glock perfection.
Yeah, I used to have, before I switched the performance trigger, I used to have the Glock gadget, which you take the back plate off, replace it, and you can, when you reholster, you can put your thumb on the back plate, reholster, and even if your finger's on the trigger, it's not going to allow the striker to go back and pre-cock.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So I had that, but yeah, if we do go to a war, which I hope doesn't happen regardless, but we're pretty screwed because SIG's got the rifle and handgun contract now.
I mean, I like their rifles. They've got that, I think it's the M400 is their military line on their AR-15s. And I had one and it was very impressive, from the crisp trigger to the smoothness of the bolt action. It was a nice gun. I love Colt. Colt pissed me off because they stopped making ARs as a little marketing ploy. Now they're back to making ARs. But in my opinion, if you want by far the best AR-15 on the market, out of everything that I've shot, go with Aero Precision. It is the shit. I'll take Aero Precision over Daniel Defense.
See, I'm the other way. I'll do BCM or Daniel Defense, and that's about it.
Have you had an Aero Precision yet?
Nah, I won't buy one.
It is an amazing company and what they're putting out. Very impressed. Yeah. The only issue is they're fucking in Oregon, so they're kind of fucked. They need to get out of that state. But
yeah, a lot going on. A lot going on in the gun world too. But I thank you. I can't thank you enough, Tanner. It was a really great
brother.
Thank
you for having me. I mean, I appreciate your time, and we'll definitely do this again, brother. So
yeah, absolutely. We'll have to link up too. If you're coming to Florida, if you got downtime, hit me up. We'll go fishing or do something.
Hell yeah, man. Same for you. You come up this way, I'll put you on a black bear, some turkey, a whitetail. We go trout fishing. We can do some cat fishing. Depends on what you want to get into. But
hell yeah, sounds good, man.
Shit up here too. So,
hell yeah, sounds good, man. I appreciate it again.
Have to do it again. Hey, also, if you need anything for your book, whenever like you finish stuff up, or if you need help working on it, or websites, whatever you need, bro, get at me and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And
awesome.
I'll
thank you.
Just together for you, so it's sweet.
I appreciate it. Only problem with mine is all the shit that I want to put it in is in my head, and I can't convey it. I just gotta sit there and just type it out. So
well, that's what the ghostwriting's for, bro. And honestly, like,
I have plans for 3 books. One I definitely will do later on with y'all. Absolutely. Because I don't want to have to do that.
it's not a bad, like, everybody looks at the ghostwriting side as a bad thing, like, oh, somebody else did your work, whatever. Well, they did, but they didn't. So all they did was took what you said out loud and put it on paper in a way that actually made sense. And if you think that you're going to just take whatever they give you and run with it, you're wrong. You're going to want to go into it. You're going to want to edit it. You're going to want to put your own touches on it. You're going to want to add sentences. You're going to want to change paragraphs. You're going to eliminate shit. You're going to change the title. You're going to all these fucking things, right? There's a million other things that go into it as well. It's not just getting things on the paper. And I promise you now, the most wealthy, important fucking people on the planet are not writing their own books.
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
Mark Evans, we just closed him. He's getting ready to write another book with us. I mean, huge client. He's wrote multiple books with us. He lets them all be ghostwritten, and then he added some hardcore afterwards. I mean,
I mean, even James Patterson, he lives right down the road from us. He sits at Starbucks, and he's got it made. He doesn't have to. He can just put his name on something and
absolutely people write shit for him, right? I mean, these guys, Donald Trump didn't write The Art of the Deal. He sat down with a ghostwriter that he told the story of The Art of the Deal to, and the ghostwriter put it together for him. So just think about that shit too, man. Like, if you get into it, rather than waiting years to get your first book out, because if you look at, like, one of the things I want to do is become a public speaker. Speak more on stage. And if you look at being a public speaker and you look at what public speakers are paid, if you're not a best-selling author, or if you're not an author of a book of some sort, you can't ever get paid more than like $2,500 to $5,000 unless you become like an expert in your industry, or you have a big following on social media, something along those lines.
Or you're a Navy SEAL.
Navy SEAL, that'll help in the SEAL, right? But if you become a bestseller, then that completely changes. That's whenever you start out at about $5,000, and you only go up from that point. And the more speeches that you give, the more money that you're able to charge for them. But it all kind of starts with being, having that credibility, being that best-selling author, and saying that I do know what the fuck I'm talking about in this industry. And
Absolutely.
so then you can put yourself on that way too. So
Yeah.
don't let it take fucking years. Like, how old are you right now?
28.
So Andrew Tate, whenever he was 27, was doing nothing but he was fighting a little bit here and there, but it wasn't big worth of shit. And he damn sure wasn't doing a whole lot of crazy stuff. He was mainly just a bouncer at a club at 27. So like, if you put out a book now and you become a best-selling author now, at 28 years old, you're a best-selling author. Think about where you're at whenever you're 37. Andrew Tate's 37.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
I started one up, working on one book. I have an idea for 2 others, and I'm about to put pen to paper for an idea I had today. So it's
fuck yeah. And I want to talk
I'm
about
gonna
Andrew
have
Tate
to.
just because of his relevancy and shit, man.
Yeah, and well,
He's,
I don't see the controversy, and
be better.
yeah,
He's a philanthropist. All he wants is other people to be fucking better and live a healthier, better life, more strong,
hold yourself accountable,
more accountable. Yep. Get rid of the
yeah.
victim mentality.
Say some jokes.
Say some funny shit while you're at it. Amen. Provide smiles.
Yeah. Well, Tanner, again, thank you.
Absolutely.
How can the listeners find you? Where should they go?
Go to tannerboatwright.com, and there's everything else from there. They can follow the links from there.
Okay.
For the book, for my coaching group, to get a hold of me, whatever they need. So
yeah, I'll link it in the description. Plus, you're on Instagram. You're on everything, and it's
Instagram,
right. WRIGHT. Right. Boat, like a boat, and right.
Right. Yeah.
You gotta come out with a t-shirt or something.
So funny. It's a down south name, man. I don't know.
Well, again, thank you, Tanner.
Sure.
And until next time. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll shoot you a text after this. We'll chat it up.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. And everyone else, until next time, I hope you have tight lines. And remember, fish like hell.
Woo! I love it. See you later.
Cut. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
For sure, man.